Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the administration of Warren G. Harding. He's widely regarded is one of our worst presidents because his administration was really marred by scandal after scandal. It was really one of the very first scandal-ridden administrations. Not the very first. There was Ulysses S. Grant and a few others who had pretty poor records in this regard. But Harding was really kind of a new standard by which other presidents were measured. Personally, he doesn't have a lot of qualifications to be president. He had been a senator from Ohio, but outside of that, he didn't have a lot of really, big credentials. He was never like a chief executive. He was never, a foreign policy expert or anything like that. He didn't have a lot of background other than the fact that he'd served in the Senate for a while. That really made him qualified to be president. He did, however, look the part. He was tall. By the day's standards, apparently a lot of folks thought he was pretty good looking. On top of that, Warren G. Harding was a pretty nice guy. By all accounts, when he walked into a party, he was kind of the life of the party. He was an easy guy to get along with. He was the kind of guy that, he knew everybody's name and a nice guy. And so people liked Warren G. Harding. And for that reason, that's probably a lot of why people were gravitated towards him for president. He was not the most capable politician, however. He wasn't necessarily good at working the Washington system, and he wasn't always the most respectable. This is a guy who became a member of the Ku Klux Klan while in office, took the oath to the Ku Klux Klan in the Oval Office. So didn't always make real great decisions, and that's gonna come back to haunt him. His inability to show good judgment, to show discernment, to discriminate between what is good and what is bad, what is good for his administration, what's bad for his administration. He fails to make some good decisions there. He does, however, make some good decisions. The good choices he makes are people he appoints to the cabinet. Charles Hughes, his Secretary of State. They negotiate a lot of really groundbreaking treaties during the Harding administration. Herbert Hoover, who was his Secretary of Commerce, who would later become President of the United States. Herbert Hoover, known as the Great Engineer, was very competent, very capable, was a self-made man, had pulled himself out of poverty, very, very intelligent, was a graduate of Stanford. By all accounts, a great choice as the Secretary of Commerce. Andrew Mellon, widely regarded still to this day as probably our most influential Secretary of the Treasury, with the exception of Hamilton, who of course started the Treasury. So Andrew Mellon, incredibly capable, a lot of history in banking, and again, he was the guru. So he was an excellent choice. A Secretary of Agriculture, a guy by the name of Wallace. Again, a great choice, did a great job for him. Unfortunately, as is true in life, you're not always known for your good choices. Many times you're known more for the bad choices you make, and such is the case of Warren G. Harding. He's really known for his bad choices. He has a lot of positions to fill when he becomes president, so he starts to go ahead and lean on his friends, people that he thinks he can trust. And his presidential friends, guys like the Attorney General Doherty, Secretary of the Interior Albert Fall, these guys are the guys that end up really hurting him. And these guys are referred to as the Ohio Gang. All his old friends from back in Ohio. And they're the ones who get involved in the presidential scandals, and they lead to the downfall of Warren G. Harding. Most of his problems come with his domestic agenda, primarily because, he really didn't care about his domestic agenda. His domestic agenda was basically do nothing. He didn't think the government should be involved in social reforms. He didn't think government should be involved in business. And so he really advocated a very limited government when it came to domestic policy. His whole theme of his campaign was a return to normalcy. The United States, we had just been through Teddy Roosevelt, who wanted to change everything up, Taft, and then Wilson. These guys were huge reformers, and quite frankly, we were ready for a return to normalcy. We were tired. We were tired of changing everything and coming up with all these new ways of doing things. We just wanted to be left alone for a little while. And so when Warren G. Harding comes along with his presidential campaign slogan of return to normalcy, a lot of Americans were like, yeah, we're off of World War I. That was really tough. All the crazy reforms of the progressive era. Let's just slow down. Warren G. Harding really runs almost his entire campaign off of his front porch in Ohio. And it was a perfect setting for this idea of let's slow down, let's take a deep breath, and let's relax a little bit on the front porch. And the Americans ate it up. We were ready for that. Some of the things he does do, he does embrace nativism. This is, I think, that pushes him towards the Klan, actually. Passes the Emergency Quota Act, the Immigration Act of 1924, the National Origin System. So he does do stuff that really curbs the number of immigrants that come into the United States, and it's notable, and it's effective. Immigration to the U.S. during the 1920s goes way down for multiple reasons, but part of it is the role that Warren G. Harding played. The scandals then are what he's really known for. Scandals involving folks like Jesse Smith and Colonel Thomas Miller. These are scandals involving kickbacks for building veterans hospitals. Scandals involving Charles Forbes, again having to do with bribery and kickbacks. But by far and away, the most infamous scandal, the scandal that breaks his presidency, is the scandal called Teapot Dome. Teapot Dome has to do with our nation's oil reserves. Till this day, our nation keeps a certain amount of oil in reserve. We save it for a rainy day. And if we were to ever really need it, we were involved in a war and our supplies got cut, that's what we'd go to. Back in the day, the way we did that was we found oil and we left it in the ground. We didn't produce it. And these were in areas that we knew. And one of the areas, one of the fields that we had left unproduced, we left the oil in the ground, was the field Teapot Dome. It was located in Wyoming. And what happened was Albert Fall, who again was one of the Ohio gang, he's the Secretary of the Interior. He's in charge of our oil reserves. And he goes ahead and knowingly allows some of his friends in the oil companies to go ahead and drill beside the oil reserve and then drill into it. So he was basically being paid off. He got bribed with several $100,000 in a ranch and a herd of cattle in Montana to look the other way. He knew the oil companies were producing this oil out of this geologic structure, the Teapot Dome, and he ignored it. He knew it was happening, and because he was bribed, he let it happen. And this is the scandal that brings down Harding. He will eventually suffer a stroke, and a lot of people will attribute that to the pressure that he was under as a result of this scandal, Teapot Dome. And so again, what is he known for? That's what he's known for. However, again, he made some good choices too. He was a good president, especially in regards to foreign affairs. He signs a number of treaties. One of the more influential treaties is the Five Powers Treaty. It has to do with arms reduction. It includes, obviously, the United States, but then also 4 other additional powers, Japan, Britain, France, and Italy. We agree that, hey, we want to go ahead and cut back on the size of our navies. And this, again, is following World War I. We don't want to have another thing like that. We want to kind of step back from the precipice. And on top of that, navies are expensive, and they're costing a lot of money, so we want to go ahead and trim them down. He also goes ahead and negotiates the Four Powers Treaty, which has to do with China. It's similar to what will later be passed, the Nine Powers Treaty. It's just that the Nine Powers Treaty adds a few more. The 4 powers that originally start: U.S., Britain, France, and Japan, and they're basically agreeing to uphold the open door policy. Here we go. Again, come back to that open door policy that we discussed earlier. Open door policy ignored it first when John Hay proposed it, but we keep working at it. After the Boxer Rebellion, we go ahead and we keep saying, hey, the open door policy. Here we're coming back to it. We're advocating for free trade, again, trying to eliminate the causes of conflict. So here you see in the 5 Powers Treaty and the 4 Powers Treaty, right back to Wilson's 14 points. So again, even though Wilson didn't get all those 14 points in the Treaty of Versailles, the United States, as a matter of policy, is still working towards those goals. We're working towards reducing the size of the military, working towards free trade, and the idea of we were reducing the chances of a further conflict, or at least that's what was hoped. The 9 Powers Treaty, again, meant to keep peace in Asia, basically upholds the open door policy. It's an extension of the 4 Powers Treaty, just adds a few more nations into that. Tariffs and reparations, then. Financially, some things that got accomplished during the Harding years that end up being not in our best interest. The Fordney-McCumber Tariff Act raises tariffs to the highest level they've ever been in U.S. history. This starts a trade war where people can't sell their stuff here because we put up this huge tariff that makes it cost prohibitive for them to do business here. So they say, fine, you won't let us sell our stuff to you. We're going to do the same. And all of a sudden, we can't sell our stuff in other markets around the world. The trade war is one of the things that leads us into the Great Depression. Also, it's during the Harding administration that we come up with the Dawes Plan. The Dawes Plan was a way to kind of help Germany pay back their war reparations. I'll try to explain here. What was going on was France and Great Britain owed us money after the war. We had loaned them a lot of money. And we were saying, hey, you got to pay up. And France and Great Britain looked at us and we said, we can't pay up. Germany hasn't paid us back yet. And we're like, well, Germany's never going to pay you back because they can't. You know, the treaty was unfair to them. Their economy's in shambles. This isn't going to happen. So we realized if we wanted our money back, we had to help Germany. And so the Dawes Plan was basically, we would go ahead and loan Germany the money to rebuild, Germany would rebuild. We would hope this restarted their economy. Once their economy restarts, then they can pay off Britain and France. And once Britain and France get paid off, then we'll get our money back that we loaned them. That was the basic idea. So we were loaning money to Germany so that they could pay back France and Britain, who then could pay us back. Was kind of how it was supposed to work. And that was the Dawes Plan.